There is a woman who hasn't fully been born yet. She moves through invisible layers within you, silent but present. She doesn't emerge from a glorious moment or a grand achievement. She appears slowly, in the midst of the pain you once swore you couldn't bear. And it's precisely because of that she is being born now. The woman you are becoming didn't get here by accident. She is made of the decisions no one saw, of the sleepless nights when you cried in silence, of the moments you were afraid but chose to keep going. The woman you are becoming is the greatest proof that, even when everything seemed to fall apart, you didn't give up on yourself. And maybe no one will notice it right away. But there's something most people don't understand about this transformation. Something subtle, deep, almost secret. And that's exactly the point. The woman you are becoming is invisible before she becomes undeniable. The curious thing is that this metamorphosis comes with no announcement, no celebration, no witnesses. But it happens inside, in silence. And the closer you get to her, the more you feel that you're not just evolving modes, you're healing. Because there is a truth few dare to face. Real growth isn't aesthetic, it's visceral. And every woman who is reborn from within is reborn through healing. That's the path we'll walk here, not with ready-made answers, but with questions you may have never asked yourself. There's something on this journey that changes everything. What we do not face in ourselves, we will meet as fate. Carl Jung. Have you noticed how some wounds insist on returning? As if time wasn't enough to erase them, as if distance didn't make them any less intense. The truth is, the woman you are becoming could only be born because you finally looked at what you had most avoided. Healing doesn't begin when the wound disappears. It begins when the wound speaks, and you listen. Evolution in this sense is a dance with pain. It's not about defeating it, but moving through it. Every tear that fell in the silence of your room was in truth an act of resistance. A reminder that even in ruins, you are still there, present, aware, trying. And that is healing. The inner woman doesn't bloom in certainty. She rises from ruins, from pieces gathered with trembling hands and exhausted hearts. She is born when you stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That's the moment when growth stops being a concept and becomes experience. Body, soul, skin. But there's one detail that changes everything. What few understand is that true transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you always were before the world told you who you should be. Healing, then, isn't addition. It's subtraction. A slow removal of the masks, the fears, the voices of others that echo inside your mind. And this journey has no straight line. It has curves, setbacks, days that feel like you're right back at the beginning. But you're not, because even in your stumbles, there is progress. The woman you are becoming is no longer the one from yesterday. Every fall has shaped you. Every rejection has strengthened you. Every no you heard was actually a push, guiding you back to yourself. Healing as evolution also reveals your shadows. And it takes courage to face them without self-hate, to look at your mistakes and not define yourself by them, to say, yes, I did that, but now I know more and I choose differently. That's when the inner woman begins to bloom. When you stop striving for perfection and start choosing presence. There is a brutal delicacy in this process, a gentle strength that only those who have been broken truly know. Because it's only when everything collapses that you understand. It wasn't the world that needed to change. It was the way you treated yourself inside of it. Healing is the most honest mirror there is. And in it, you finally see yourself as whole. even with your cracks. And that leads us to something even deeper. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung pain, when acknowledged, reveals hidden paths, not the ones we choose freely, but those the soul senses even before the mind can understand. To honour the path, even when it hurts, is to accept that every step, no matter how harsh, carries within it an essential part of our evolution. It's like walking barefoot on sharp stones, knowing that even the wounds teach something about direction. The woman you are becoming, she doesn't deny the pain. She embraces it as part of the process, because something deep within you already understands. Healing does not come from forgetting, but from accepting. And there's a hidden beauty in this. When you choose to keep going, even while wounded, you're telling the universe that your love for yourself is greater than your fear of feeling. Every phase of your life that seemed unfair, every relationship that shattered you, every silence that hurt more than 1,000 words, all of that now gains a new meaning. Not as cruel fate, but as sacred path. To honour the path is to stop wishing it had been different and start seeing the wisdom in your scars. You didn't get here by chance, and if it still hurt, it's because you're alive, because you're transforming, because there's still an inner woman blooming within you. To honour the path is to understand that you're not late, nor wrong, you're in motion, under construction. And that's exactly where healing happens, in the silent movement of someone who refuses to give up. But there's a subtle trap in this process. An inner voice whispering, you should be further along by now. And this is where you must remember, the soul's timing isn't measured by clocks. Growth is not a race. Every woman has her own rhythm, and your pain has something to tell you that only you can hear. Allow yourself to feel, without rushing to fix. Allow yourself to walk slowly, even when everyone around you is running. Because to honour the path is also to slow down, to make peace with the pace of life, to understand that healing and hurry never coexist, and that every woman who respects herself through the process blooms in the right time. And then even on grey days, there's a spark within you that softly whispers, keep going. Because to honour the path, even with pain, is the deepest act of self-love. It is living proof that you are becoming someone who will never again abandon herself. It is this silent love that transforms you. But that leads us to something even deeper. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. There is something that cannot be seen, but can be felt. A silent force, almost mystical, that led you through paths not even you could understand. Have you ever wondered how many times you should have given up, but didn't? How many times the woman you are becoming was sustained by something you couldn't name, but knew was real? This invisible force, this subtle pulse that kept you standing. It didn't come from the outside. It was always there. Inside. It's as if your very essence knew before you did that something greater was waiting for you. Something that could only be reached if you kept going. This force doesn't scream. It whispers. And maybe that's why it's so powerful, because it doesn't impose. It guides. And every time you listen to that subtle calling, even when the world tells you otherwise, you come closer to your truth. The inner woman is moved by this sacred impulse. She walks through pain, doubt, and brokenness. But she keeps going. Not because she is immune to fear, but because she has learned to trust in something beyond what the eyes can see. This invisible force is the ancestral memory of your soul. It is the silent inheritance of all the women who came before you, women who also endured, who also fell, but who continued and through you, still do. It's not about magic, it's about remembrance, a return to your own origin. Every time you lose faith in yourself, this force rises, sometimes as intuition, other times just a simple go. But it's there, and the more you allow yourself to listen, the clearer it becomes. Until one day you no longer need to ask if it's real, because it will be impossible to deny. What few people realise is that this force doesn't rely on grand events. It blossoms in the smallest gestures, in the no you had the courage to say, in the yes you gave to yourself, in the pause you chose to take, in the tear you allowed to fall. It reveals itself in that intimate space. When you stop fighting against yourself and begin to walk alongside yourself, this force didn't take you where you wanted to go, it took you where you needed to be. And even when everything seemed wrong, it knew exactly what it was doing. Because this force is you, free from baggage, free from conditioning, free from guilt. And it's this free version of you that is now beginning to emerge with greater clarity. Maybe, just maybe, the woman you are becoming is actually a reunion with who you've always been. And now, with wiser eyes, you're beginning to recognize the signs this force has always sent your way. It didn't save you, it awakened you. And that's why you're still here. But did this force bring you all this way just for you to stay in the same place? Fear is a small dark room where negatives are developed. Carl Jung. When we look at the future through the eyes of the past, fear takes the wheel. But what if the future isn't a battlefield, but rather a space of love, an extension of your healing? That question alone changes everything, because what shapes tomorrow isn't what will happen. It's the inner state we choose to carry there. The woman you are becoming no longer feeds on catastrophic predictions. She has learned that living in fear is like walking blindfolded. You might be moving, but you're not really going anywhere. Fear paralyzes, love liberates, and loving yourself, even in moments of uncertainty, is the first step in turning the future into a space of light. The future doesn't ask for certainty, it asks for trust. The trust that even without all the answers, you will know how to dance with the unknown, because you've already danced with pain, with loss, with loneliness, and you survived. So why not dance with love too? Love for who you can still become. Love for the inner woman who still pulses within you, waiting to be lived. What few understand is that fear often wears the mask of caution. It says, don't do it, it might go wrong. But behind that voice is the echo of old wounds, not your truth. Love, on the other hand, says, go gently, but go. It doesn't ignore the risks, but believes in your ability to move through them. And that change in tone, that's what changes destiny. Imagine the future as a house still under construction. If the foundation is built on fear, every wall becomes a prison. But if it's built on love, every room becomes a refuge. The difference lies in the invisible material with which you choose to dream. And yes, dreaming is an act of courage, because it requires imagining something beyond the pain. This isn't about naive optimism. It's about choosing not to repeat old patterns. About understanding that to live based on fear is to live under the authority of the past. But to live based on love is to give the present the chance to write a new story. One in which you are the protagonist, not a background character in your own choices. Love, in this case, is action. It's when you embrace yourself instead of judging. It's when you move closer, even while trembling. It's when you allow yourself, even if you don't feel fully ready. And each small gesture, like that, plants a seed in the future. A seed that will bloom at the right time, in the fertile soil of your own surrender. And then the future is no longer a threat. It becomes an invitation, a silent calling to live with more truth, more presence, more compassion. Because when you choose love over fear, it's not the world that changes, it's the way you walk through it. And it is this conscious walk that leads us to something even deeper. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of others. Carl Jung. There is a moment, silent, almost imperceptible, when something inside you changes forever. It's not a scream, it's not a revolution. It's more like the whisper of your soul saying, "Now you know." And in that moment, the new version of yourself begins to be born, not as an external imposition, but as the natural unfolding of an awakened consciousness. The woman you are becoming is not a project to be completed. She is an expanding awareness. She is the result of every time you looked at your shadows and didn't run, of every time you chose to understand instead of judge, of every time you said, "This hurts me, but I can hold space for it." Because it is through the acceptance of your own darkness that true light begins to emerge. Consciousness doesn't arrive like an instruction manual. It seeps in layers. A thought that turns into stillness. A pain that transforms into compassion. A cycle that ends with love, not with anger. And so without you even noticing, the new version begins to take shape. Not outside of you, but within, in the small spaces where once there was only resistance. But there's something few people see. This new version doesn't come to erase the old one. She comes to embrace her, to integrate her, because everything you've been brought you here. Every past version built the foundation for who you are now. And if today there is more awareness, it is because yesterday there was darkness. And both coexist in harmony when you stop dividing yourself against yourself. This new woman has nothing to prove. She doesn't shout her existence. She simply is. And her presence transforms. It transforms conversations, gestures, choices. It transforms relationships, not through force, but through resonance. Because when someone begins to live from a place of awareness, everything around them slowly begins to realign. And that is the secret of true evolution. It doesn't happen to impress. It happens to set you free. Free from the stories that no longer fit, from the roles that no longer serve, from the fears that no longer define. The new version isn't stronger because she never falls. She is stronger because she knows how to rise. Gently. That's why when you look back, you no longer recognize certain patterns. Because now there is awareness, and with it comes a new way of existing, a way that is lighter, clearer, and more you. And this is the greatest proof that you didn't give up on yourself, because only those who chose to love their truth, even before it was fully clear, keep evolving. And then, everything makes sense. The woman you are becoming was always there, waiting for you. But are we truly ready to accept that? In the end, it wasn't the pain that shaped you. It was the way you chose to remain whole in the face of it. And now, standing before the mirror of your own story, something is revealed. You were never lost. You were simply shedding what wasn't yours, what you were taught to believe as truth, what fear disguised as protection. The woman you are becoming, she is the answer to every sleepless night, to every abandonment disguised as choice, to every silent act of self-forgiveness no one ever saw. She is living proof that even when everything collapsed, you remained, breathing, feeling, existing. And then, everything makes sense. Every fall, every fracture, every detour were hidden steps, veiled paths leading you inward. Because healing was never about becoming who you used to be. Healing was remembering you never stopped being. You were simply forgotten by yourself. hidden beneath layers that now dissolve like morning mist under the sun. The woman who is now beginning to emerge. She doesn't want to conquer. She wants to be. She's not seeking to be understood. She's seeking to understand herself. And in that intimate shift, everything changes. Relationships change, time changes, the body changes. Because when consciousness awakens, even your gaze carries a new light. In the end, the answer was always there, in your pauses, in your refusals, in the boundaries you learnt to set, in the choices you made, even while trembling. Each of them silently said, I didn't give up on myself. And now everything you've lived converges to a single point. The woman you are becoming is healing in the form of presence. But are we truly ready to accept that? Can we finally recognize ourselves in this new skin? Because the woman who is emerging no longer fits in small spaces. She no longer molds herself to what diminishes her. She exists, whole, authentic, unapologetic. And maybe, just maybe, that has been your greatest transformation. Not becoming someone new, but returning to yourself. If you've come this far, you may have already realized the woman being born within you is not a promise. She is a reality. She is made of invisible choices, silent resistance, and self-love cultivated in the darkest corners of the soul. And every step you've taken, no matter how small, was an act of courage, a yes to your own existence. This woman is proof that you didn't allow yourself to be forgotten, that even in the face of chaos, pain, and doubt, you chose to keep going, not out of pride, but out of love. A love that over time stopped waiting for external validation and began to bloom from within, like a sun rising after the longest night. And now your awareness is your greatest guide. It leads you away from paths that no longer fit. It brings you closer to your own voice and shows you, gently, that true evolution is the kind that teaches you to embrace yourself, even in pieces. Because loving yourself isn't a destination, it's a practice, a daily choice. So don't rush, don't pressure yourself, don't compare, just keep going. Keep listening to yourself, keep healing, keep choosing yourself. Because every time you say yes to yourself, you're reminding the universe that you are alive, that you are present, that you are whole, and that in itself is a revolution. Now is the moment to take the first step. Begin applying these ideas today, even in silence, even alone. And then tell me in the comments, what part of this journey resonated the most with you? Which part of this new woman do you already recognize in yourself? Your story may touch another soul. It may be the reflection another woman needs to see, because all healing becomes more powerful when it is shared. And if you felt this message reach into you, I invite you to watch the video above. It might be one more piece in the puzzle of your self-reunion. I'll see you in the next video.